You're listening to the #1 podcast for nonprofit leaders, getting your nonprofit fully funded. This is the Fundraising Masterminds Podcast.
How is an executive director going to grow the organization if the board is just constantly on them to cut?
It doesn't work.
You should not be limited as a nonprofit organization in its vision because this is only how much money we do raise or think we should raise.
The question is just what's the best way to spend that resource to actually get a return on investment?
What really just boggles my mind is that highly effective business people come onto boards and it's like they all of a sudden went brain dead and they just think, oh, well, none of those things apply in the nonprofit world, and they miss out on great opportunities.
Well, welcome back to another episode here at the Fundraising Masterminds Podcast. We're so excited to have you join us today. My name is Jason Galasinski, and with me, my co-host, Jim Dempsey.
Hi, Jason.
And today we're going to be talking about boards.
Yes.
It's actually, we get a lot of questions about boards.
Oh, yeah.
You know, what should my board be doing?
What's their role? What's their responsibility?
Yep. So today we're going to be talking about the role of a board in fundraising.
Yep,
in fact, we've got 9 ways your nonprofit board members should be involved in fundraising.
Yep.
Before we get into those, would you paint a picture of just some of the problems that nonprofit leaders have with boards, or just problems with boards in general?
Yeah. Well, Jason, I mean, there's just a myriad of issues that nonprofit organizations, especially executive directors, have with board members. It is so important, and we've done some videos before about making sure you have the right board members, that you're recruiting the right people to be on the board. What we're going to talk about today a lot is the expectations of the board, because it seems to me that there are a lot of problems that would be solved if our board members just understood what their expectations and what their roles are. Sadly, to say that there may be also a good chunk of those people that would not be on the board if they knew what some of those expectations are. But at least may eliminate some of the conflicts once people get on boards.
It's kind of a tricky thing because, you know, you want people to be on your boards. A lot of times people ask their friends or family members or just church leaders or whatever because they know them.
Right.
And they need to fill these spots.
Yeah,
and so they're just looking for warm bodies to fill a spot.
Yeah.
But they're not really thinking about their roles or responsibilities.
Right.
In fact, we did a whole podcast episode on the roles and responsibilities of a board.
Right.
And I'll put a link to that in the description if anyone wants to check that out. This episode is really talking about fundraising. So you actually do expect board members to be involved in fundraising.
Oh, absolutely.
They're not supposed to just show up to a meeting once a month.
Yeah, and just coming to the board meeting is not their primary role and responsibility.
Don't we hire staff to do all that? Why are the board supposed to be involved?
Well, Jason, the board is the overarching authority of the organization. They set the direction of the organization. The staff implements those plans and those directions, but technically they are the owners of your organization. And you've got to make sure that your owners are involved in making sure that your organization continues to succeed and move towards its mission. And that includes not just that the organization is spending the money properly, those fiduciary rights, because that is an important thing, that money is spent wisely and spent efficiently, but also they are responsible for raising the money. So it's not just ensuring that the money is spent and used properly, but that the money comes in properly. And so it's not just the use of, but it's the collection and gathering of the money to fund it.
Well, when you said the board members are the owners, that really kind of clicked in my mind. I never really thought about it that way. You know, you think of board members as just a position. You know, like
filling a slot or something.
But technically, I mean, in a real business, you have shareholders that actually legally own the rights to the business.
Generally, that makes up your board of directors. Our shareholders.
Right. And in a nonprofit, you don't have shareholders.
No, you don't. And to be honest, Jason, that really almost makes it a little bit problematic, because the people who own shares of the company for a business, they have a real vested interest. But sadly, I can say there's a lot of board members of nonprofit organizations that don't see the ownership aspect of that. They tend to think that tough decisions, keeping the organization afloat is all the responsibility of the executive director. And they don't have the passion and understanding and heart of the mission like an owner should.
They're just like the accountability board,
right?
Or something,
right,
like
or
making
something.
Sure that the people we hire do their job,
or counsel. They just show up at a meeting, spout a few wise words, and then go home, and you don't see them again. And that's not what a board should be.
Okay, yeah. All right. Well, that's just that in itself. I feel like we could just wrap up.
Right. Yeah.
But let's get into the 9 ways that nonprofit board members should be involved in fundraising.
Right.
Now, I guarantee you're probably not doing all 9 of these things.
Yeah. First of all, number 1 is that they should understand and be trained in fundraising. What that means, Jason, is that there needs to be a clear understanding what their role is and be trained in how to do that. So it's one thing to ask someone to be involved in development. It's another to train those people up. And I don't think it's fair to have someone be asked to do development that's never done it before, that doesn't know how to do it, and has absolutely no training.
Yeah.
So if we're going to ask them to be, which we should, involved in development, we also need to train them up in how to do that as well too. So that is an important aspect.
Okay. Number 2?
Number 2 is get involved in strategic and development planning.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but there's a lot of nonprofit organizations that don't do strategic planning. So if your organization does not have a strategic plan and your board members are not involved in helping to craft that strategic plan, you need to rethink your whole model and the way you do things. Because once again, your owners, always keep thinking through the rest of this video, board members are owners. As owners, they need to help to set the direction, but not just set the direction. They have to help implement that, and they have to help fund that plan and that vision. We've talked about this in other videos. Ministry should drive development. Development shouldn't drive ministry. What that means is, once more, is that your ministry or your mission needs to lead out, and there needs to be a broad plan, and there needs to be a strategy, and then development comes alongside and helps to fund that. You should not be limited as a nonprofit organization, and your board shouldn't be limited in its vision because this is only how much money we do raise or think we should raise.
Right.
So you need to be having big dreams and then look for ways to fund that. So they need to be involved in that planning, and they need to help to fund that plan. Now, they also need to help to craft a development plan. So if you have a development director, or even if you don't, there needs to be a development plan. What's our model? Are we going to do direct mail? Are we going to send newsletters? Are we going to send emails? What's our communication strategy? Are we going to have a mid-level team? Are we going to put together a major donor effort? Are we going to do a perfect vision dinner? All those things need to be decided, and they need to be put in a plan.
I mean, you're talking like a bunch of owners for a corporation or something.
Well,
I mean, that's what it sounds. That's what it's like when you get together with owners in a business. You're talking like, well, how are we going to grow the business? What are we going to do?
Right.
How are we going to make money?
That's exactly right.
You're saying things that sound a lot like that.
Yeah. Well, in a lot of ways, the practices that we have, even for our nonprofit organization, are the same principles in business. And what really just boggles my mind so often is that highly effective business people come onto boards, and it's like they all of a sudden went brain dead about what made them a success in business, and they just think, oh, well, none of those things apply in the nonprofit world, so we can't do any of these things, and they miss out on great opportunities.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to number 3, which is that board members should be giving personally as an example.
Absolutely. Just as David in the Bible modeled giving before he went to build the temple and raise up the kingdom, he was the first one to give, and he modeled giving. Our board members need to do the same thing. And we're not talking here, Jason, equal giving, but we are talking about equal sacrifice. I'm not a huge fan of saying that everyone must give this amount of money or you can't be on the board, but you should be giving. And I'm really glad that a lot of foundations these days are asking before they give gifts to find out how many of your board members give. Do all your board members give? If they don't give, why don't they give? Because frankly, number one, if you're on a board of an organization, your giving, your tithing, only your church should be ahead of this. This should be your second priority in giving. And if you aren't giving, it gives a clear message that I either don't care about this organization or I don't value what is important about keeping themselves soluble. So it's really important that they model giving.
Okay. Yeah. Number 4?
Number 4, they should act as ambassadors with contacts and potential donors. It is so important that they see themselves as the representatives, as spokespeople for the organization. They've got to do everything that they can to represent the organization, and they need to be proactive. So it's one thing to accept speaking engagements on behalf of the organization, and you go in there as a board member of the organization, but you also need to act as an ambassador and be proactive, meeting with people and connecting with people so that they see you as a representative, as a spokesperson of the board.
Again, you're not looking at it as a duty that you go in, you have a meeting, you give some advice, and you leave, and now you're just off on your own. No, you actually are a co-owner, so to speak, with other board members.
Absolutely.
So you need to be out there pushing the organization and representing it for sure. Number 5, they should be identifying and cultivating potential partners for your organization.
Yes, absolutely. I think what happens too often is that the board sees the executive director or the development person as the sole person to raise up the names of people. Now, I applaud board members who are at least willing to have contact with our financial partners. Call them, thank them, appreciate them, meet with them. But I have an even greater respect for those board members who see themselves as rainmakers, as individuals who bring people into the organization and challenge them to give to the organization.
And the easiest way to do that is just, have some flyers or information about the organization with you at all times. Keep something in your car dashboard or whatever, and whenever you're out and about and you meet people, you have that, you're that representative.
If you work for Coldwell Banker or Keller Williams as a real estate agent, would you walk around town without flyers and brochures and business cards that say I'm an ambassador for this real estate company? No, you would not. And it's the same way. If you are a board member, you need to see yourself as a representative and make sure you've got that information with you.
Well, and that just helps to cultivate potential partners.
Number 6, Jason, they should be trained to ask. And it's so important that they not only identify and cultivate relationships with people, as we just talked about, but they also need to be able to close the deal. If they are having lunch with someone who's a colleague, someone who is a partner with them, someone who they go to church with, a neighbor, and the subject of your nonprofit organization comes up and they talk about the organization, they should, if the opportunity presents itself, be able to say to someone, Joe, here's a way that you can give to this organization. Let me tell you, let me explain to you what their needs, what their opportunities are, and how you can give. It's so important.
So number 7, they should take the lead in development efforts for fundraising activities.
Yes, absolutely. Once again, the onus sometimes falls on the executive director, the development people. But honestly, as owners, again, they own this organization. They need to really see themselves as the person that helps to drive. It's so easy to lean on the development person. And don't get me wrong, just as the executive director's responsibility is to help facilitate and to help accomplish the plans that are set out from the strategic planning side, it's so important that the board take the lead on the development activities, even though the development director does it.
Well, when we say take the lead, we don't mean that you're doing it all.
Oh, not that you're the boss of that. It's but just you should be modeling, stepping out, being the person who does some of the first asks, identifying. Yeah, you're
coming up with the strategy.
Yeah,
you know, your staff, your director and your development director are really kind of the people that come alongside of you and saying, okay, the board members are giving us this direction. Right. Like, how do we come alongside of them and support them in this, or like help them get it done?
Yeah. And their job will be to put you in the proper place as a board member, position you for success, but position you. It's almost like we've talked about a number of times about Bill Bright with Crew, how a lot of the development people would position him to have success with the appeal. It's exactly the same way we position him for the board.
All right. What's number 8, Jim?
Number 8 is that they should motivate and direct others in development and fundraising. And it's so important, that whole motivation aspect. The executive director and the development director are going to take the cue from the board. If the board is always being negative about development things, I don't think we should try this. I don't think we should ask this person.
We don't have enough money.
We don't have enough money. Nothing should, I don't know about doing this. Do we really need to do this? Do we really need to ask everything? That is going to demotivate and just break down the executive director. It's tough enough to be the executive director and to be the development director and have that burden. They don't need somebody just beating them down.
Yeah. Well, actually, I have 2 stories about that. Okay. So one story was from Brent. You remember we worked with Brent through our Perfect Vision Dinner mentorship program. Well, Brent, he actually was trying to improve his vision dinner, and he was actually he had done some things that have improved it a little bit, and the board was already kind of giving him some pats on the backs and saying, you know, you're doing a good job, right? But he found out about the Perfect Vision Dinner mentorship program through our podcast, and he went to his board and he said, you know, I think these guys really know their stuff. Right. And I think we could really take our vision dinner to the next level if we just do their program. Right. Of course, the board did like what any other board does and said, well, how much does it cost? Right. You know, and when they found out the cost of it, which it's an investment, right? They really kind of came behind him and said, you know, if you really have done your research on this and you really believe that these guys are going to take us to the next level, then let's do it. So there's really a kind of togetherness, in the sense that they're working together, right? Because the board wants to grow the organization, and Brent's job is to figure out how. Right. So if they're aligned, you know, they should be working together. I can't tell you how many times that I've been on the phone with executive directors where we've had a great conversation. I've showed them the value of our mentorship program. And I'm literally telling them on the phone, if you join our mentorship program, I'm pretty confident we can double your income. Right. You know, and they're going to their board, and their board is like, well, you know, I think we should, you know, try to cut some costs, and I'm not sure if we can afford this. And, you know, it's like, well, you say this all the time. No organization has ever cut their way to success.
Exactly.
That's right. How is a board who's trying to grow an organization going to achieve that goal by cutting corners, cutting costs, you know, cut.
Yeah. Or worse yet, how is an executive director going to grow the organization if the board is just constantly on them to cut? Yeah.
It doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. No, it
doesn't. I mean, you do have to be spending your resources to make an effort to grow. The question is just, what's the best way to spend that resource to actually get a return on investment. Well, Jim, let's get into number 9.
Number 9, they should thank partners effectively. It is so important that our partners don't step away in one of the easiest areas they can be. There is no phone call, no conversation they will have with an individual, a partner, that's easier than a thank you.
Right. So now, does this mean board members need to thank every single donation, $20, $30 donation that comes through?
No, they really do not. In fact, the board members, the most effective people that they could reach out to would be the critical few, because the critical few are their peers. The board members can have the greatest impact by talking to the critical few. Yeah. Those critical few are expecting a phone call from the executive director, and that should happen. But I believe that if they're getting a thank you from one of their peers, that really says a lot. Yeah. And so now I always believe that confidentiality is important. So when you're having a board member thank them, I probably, especially if they are thanking a close friend, I would maintain the confidentiality of the close friend and say, so-and-so gave a gift that exceeded $10,000. Would you call them? Mm-hmm. Not saying exactly how much they gave. They may have given $25,000 or $50,000, but you could give that range so that they don't violate that. So it is so important that your board is involved in so many different areas, and we're going to talk about one specific area that they can be especially helpful.
Okay, well, there you have it. There's our 9 ways that board members should be involved in fundraising. And Jim, we talked about a lot of stuff. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to put this together in a PDF, because a lot of people are listening to this in the car where they're driving down. And they're like, man, this is really meaty content.
Is gold. Yeah,
it is. It's really good stuff. And you really should have it in front of you, or it might be great to have something to take to your next board meeting. Right. So we've actually prepared something for you in PDF form. And if you scan the QR code on the screen or click the link in the description, that's going to take you to a place where you can download this PDF free of charge. And it's going to have everything outlined that we talked about in this podcast episode. And we've even got something prepared that you can bring to a board meeting if you want to educate your board or have a conversation with your board about these 9 things they should be doing. Actually, this podcast might be a great resource for you as a director if you're trying to educate your board. Sometimes it's hard to go into a board meeting and tell them, hey, you're doing everything wrong, and let me tell you how you should be doing things. You might be able to use this podcast as a resource or a tool to prime the pump.
Let us be the bad guys. And but I don't think it's wrong, Jason. I think that's tremendous. Watch it together. Bring it into the board meeting and say, hey, let's watch this video together.
Yep. Use the PDF as a summary tool to help take some things away from this. And Jim, also we mentioned a few times about fundraising, right? And board's involvement in fundraising.
Right.
One big thing that I didn't want to miss this opportunity to talk about the Perfect Vision Dinner Mentorship Program. I know we mentioned it a few times during the show, but in the context of a Perfect Vision Dinner or a gala, when you're putting on something like this, a lot of nonprofits do an event like this annually, and the board is surprisingly not very involved. So I wanted to talk about 3 ways that your board, this is just real quick, 3 ways that your board should be involved in a vision dinner, a gala, or a banquet. So Jim, can you just walk us through these 3 ways real quick of how board members should be involved?
Yeah, Jason, it boggles my mind. I can't see how you can have an effective dinner without your board members being involved.
Or a lot of times they say, well, that's a great idea. Go for it.
Yeah.
And they're just like, you do it. We'll just sit back and
be warm and filled.
We will bless you.
Right. And watch you do everything. Yeah. I don't believe you can do a dinner, in my mind, without the board being involved in it.
I agree.
The first way is to be a table host and to recruit table hosts. They really should, number one, agree to fill at least one table, if not multiple tables themselves. And they should be involved in getting others to be table hosts. I think that they should be getting 3 to 5 or more other table hosts who will be filling their table. So they need to be involved in the process of filling and recruiting table hosts.
One of the things that we do that's very unique in our Perfect Vision Dinner Mentorship Program, and we use the board, we actually depend on the board for this process, is we take people through a name storming session. And this is really the critical part of how we discover who should even be guests at your event. And that's one of the things that people don't really fully understand is, we don't only just show you how the program should be and put together your program and help you with the appeal and do weekly follow-up calls, but we actually help you find the people who should actually be at your dinner.
Exactly.
That's a big deal.
It is. Getting the right people there.
Getting the right people at your dinner is how we raise the funds.
Right.
And a lot of times people's dinners or banquets or galas are kind of stagnant because you just simply got the wrong people there.
That's right.
And they do a lot of work to get the wrong people there, and then they just are surprised and flabbergasted why they can't seem to raise more than 30,000 or 100,000 or whatever. They just kind of stay at the same place.
Right.
Well, the reason why you're staying at the same place is because you get the wrong people there. What's the second way board members should be involved in the Perfect Vision Dinner?
Yeah, this is a great platform for our board to be part of the program, to put themselves in positions where people can see that they are representatives of our organization. So being MC, doing the ministry update in some situations, doing the appeal, giving a testimony, all great ways for them to be involved in the program and to be a part of the program. And so to me, that's just a great way.
Just getting your face in front of people and representing physically. I can't tell you how many board members don't even show up at the Vision Dinner.
Oh, don't get me started. You're absolutely right.
It's just kind of crazy, right?
It is.
Number 3 is you want your board members to be involved in creating a matching gift program for your Vision Dinner.
Jason, the matching gift program is a game changer in my mind. I started doing it with our dinners in 2005, and I've never looked back. And it's so important that you have matching gift opportunities out there to leverage and accelerate your giving. It adds hydraulics to all of your giving. And your board members are the real catalyst of that. There's a lot of major donors that you could go to ask to be the pace setters for your major gift and the matching gift program. But your board members are the first ones. They're the key. They are the real lead gifts. And you should have at least most, if not all, your board members being part of that matching gift fund that's going to help accelerate your giving.
Actually, I'm going to add a fourth one. This one wasn't planned, but your board members should allow you to take the Perfect Vision Dinner mentorship program.
Oh, there you go.
Because if you are wanting to take your organization to another level, I'm telling you guys, the Perfect Vision Dinner mentorship program is the program for you. And I would love for you to check it out. You can scan the QR code on the screen. You can also click the link in the description. This program is very limited because we have a very limited schedule. There's only so many people we can mentor at once, right? And it's a very personalized program. So we only offer it twice a year. We offer it once in the spring to help people prepare for the fall, and we offer it once in the fall to help prepare people for the spring. It's a 20-week program. We have over 100 videos of content and learning, but we also do weekly coaching calls to help you actually internalize this. We help you walk through the process of putting together your program. We work with your board. We bring on your team. This is a full-scale, step-by-step intensive program where we focus on the result. We're not just trying to get you to buy a course. We are trying to get you to the next level, right? So a lot of times people ask me, well, how much do you typically raise at one of these Perfect Vision Dinners? And I say, well, it depends, right? The question is it depends on where you are in your journey. But if you've never done one before, or if you're raising less than 100,000, I can almost guarantee you that our first goal is to get you to that 100,000 mark.
That's right.
You've been working with organizations. I know there's a human trafficking organization you've been helping for 6 years. And started with just a dream.
It did. Oh,
you invited me to attend their Vision Dinner. It was their 6th annual Vision Dinner. And there was 1,000 people in the room, and their goal was to raise $800,000.
That first name storming session with them that I showed up in a little cafe, they had planned on having 150 people. They ended up having over 300 people that first dinner, and they've grown over the last 6 years.
You don't just stay at 300 the whole time?
Which is amazing. I mean,
you don't
wonderful.
Don't you just want to just keep raising the same amount every year?
They actually were growing and needed to raise more. Yeah. So it was so helpful.
And they had a huge vision.
Yes,
right? They wanted to create a ranch. They had a multi-year vision,
right?
Which they accomplished not in 1 year, but they accomplished over a series of years,
right?
And that's how the Perfect Vision Dinner can help you get fully funded.
Absolutely, and we've been with them every step of the way.
Jim, how do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time.
Right. So we need to split it across however many years it's going to take. And then we make a strategy and we build and we chip away at that strategy. Yep. And we believe the Perfect Vision Dinner mentorship program is one of the best programs out there that will help you chip away at that elephant. Well, thanks again for joining us at this episode of the Fundraising Masterminds Podcast. If you enjoyed the content of this, let us know in the comments below. Let us know about your board member, your board experience, any stories that you might have. If there's any points that we shared where you're like, wow, I got to do that one, just let us know. Just put the number in the comment. Number 7 or number 8 really got me. So just anything you can do there. And while you're in there, go ahead and hit subscribe. We have weekly podcast episodes for nonprofit leaders. If you're a development director, a nonprofit leader, a board member, executive director for a nonprofit organization, this podcast is for you. And I really believe that you will grow and learn a lot by subscribing to this podcast and following us every week. Jim, any final words that you want to share about board members in fundraising?
Yeah. Number one, make sure your board members understand just what their role and responsibility is.
Yeah.
Make sure you manage expectations and then give them a little grace and let them flourish.
Yep. Use this podcast as a resource to help them understand how they can grow, and make sure you download that PDF and use that as a resource. Well, thank you again for tuning in to this episode of the Fundraising Masterminds. We'll see you again next time.
Take care.